Hi, I'm Leslee Bender, and welcome to Functional Flexibility and Fascial Fitness. I'm so happy and honored to be with you here today, although I wish I was here with you physically and not only just doing this as a virtual training. But my goal for you in this program today is to walk away with lots of new ideas, techniques, strategies that you can utilize with any of your clients, whether you are training professional athletes or whether you are, training, the soccer mom or even the active aging. It doesn't matter. This program is really designed for everyone and anyone. And I have a philosophy. It's like if you've got 10 minutes to brush your teeth, you've got 10 minutes to, massage your feet. So this particular course has come to me due to the fact that I've had the pleasure of working with Thomas Myers and doing a cadaver lab a couple years ago, and really having the opportunity to work on very healthy fascia and connective tissue and very unhealthy fascia. And I'll dive into that a little bit more. Me personally, I've been through many different organizations and studied through many different certifications, and I am a graduate of the Gray Institute of Applied Functional Science and had the opportunity to go through a year-long mentorship with Gary Gray, who is one of the absolute founders of function. So I love to give credit where credit is due, and I've had the opportunity of taking the education with the Functional Aging Institute as well. So there's so many good resources for those of us that are in the movement industry at our fingertips to really enhance the lives of all of our clients. Now, when I first started in this industry, everything was high intensity. Foam rolling, massage, manipulation wasn't even discussed because it didn't exist. Now we have the opportunity of utilizing really good equipment, really good methodologies that enhances our flexibility, mobility, and stability in everything that we do. So for me, when I worked on this program, I felt like even for myself personally, I saw some amazing changes, not only in myself, but also with my clients. So I think that you're going to really enjoy and be able to walk away with lots of really good new ideas. So let's talk about what this program is about. It's about fascia. So when we look at a cat, for example, loading to explode, and if you've ever watched a cat like jump up on a countertop, even though you don't want them on your countertop to eat your leftovers, if you watch what they do, they crouch down and they load to explode. Now, we as humans come up with some really kind of crazy exercises that, if anything, they're more detrimental to our movement function than they are an attribute. And what I mean by that is now we're spending a lot of time doing what? We are spending more time sitting over a desk, over our computers, over our cell phones in a flexed position. So matter of fact, I'm gonna have you stand up because this is gonna be, even though I'm not with you physically, it is going to be interactive. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and stand on up. Now, if you have a dog or a cat, what is the first thing your dog or cat does in the morning when it gets out of bed in the morning? It does downward facing dog or downward facing cat. So I want you to reach your arms up and I want you to just stretch authentically. Do whatever it is that feels really good to you. Oops, right now, and there goes my clicker. Do whatever feels good to you right now. See, this is live. So as you stretch up, as you move from side to side, whatever you're doing right now and you're going, this feels really good, now I'm going to completely restrict your motion. I want you to go ahead and go into a posterior pelvic tilt, and I want you to clench your glutes. So in other words, you're creating more kyphosis in the thoracic spine and your cervical spine. And now clench your glutes, and I want you to try that same stretch again, and you've inhibited movement. You don't have the ability to load and explode. Now, if I was to say now, I want you to jump as high as you can, but don't flex anything. Don't flex your knees, don't flex your ankles, and don't flex your hips. Ready, set, go. You physically can't do it. We can't be that cat. We can't be that human that needs to have explosive movements when we need it. walking is an explosive movement. But as we age, we watch people, and especially seniors, they're afraid of falling, and they start to have this little shuffle pattern because they've really lost the ability to load to explode. And yet that can be prevented, we as trainers, when we look at training our clients more efficiently. So especially when we look at healthy fascia, and it, for all intents and purposes, fascia transmits energy and our muscles transmit force. So when we have this load to explode, then we absolutely have this ability to be efficient in everything that we do. And I hope that makes sense to you. So if you do have a cat, or watch a video of a cat pouncing and jumping, it's recoiling that fascia, and just like a rubber band, creating that load to explode. And if you've ever been through any kind of an injury, and I'm about 5 months out of a total knee replacement, and my ability to load to explode on my left versus my right is quite a bit different, only because of the fact that I still have scar tissue in my knee that I'm working on, but there's inefficiency there because my ability of my proprioceptors to work the way they're supposed to right now, I'm not there yet. It will happen, hopefully in time, but we have to look at that as trainers, that when our clients have scar tissue, it can lead to injuries, and we'll talk about those here momentarily. So when we look at our sciences, this program is based on the science of movement. It's based on the science of gravity, ground reaction, and the science of behavior. So our first science is basically the physical, is that of which, when we look at gravity and ground reaction, that load to explode, gravity is bearing down on us. And if we didn't have gravity, we wouldn't have the ability to move. So that load to explode is essential, but we have to learn how to use gravity to our advantage and how we pick the exercises we need to use. And for example, when you're lying on the ground and you're doing crunches, you're not using gravity as an asset at all. If we were to put a ball behind our back, like the bender ball, love that, and you extend to flexion, then for all intents and purposes, you're loading that whole kinetic chain, if that makes sense to you. And then we've got basically the biological sciences, which is essentially, in comparison and in junction with the physical sciences, is that it's what we are made out of. It is our human anatomy, our organs, our fascia, our muscles, our tendons, our ligaments. And we as trainers, we can't say that we can separate anything out, because we can't. Our body moves as a whole rather than just a part. Now, the behavioral sciences is truly what drives us, what makes us want to do things. But yet, I love this saying from the Gray Institute, and I use it in every lecture that I give, is create a conscious movement for a subconscious result. So, for example, if I'm working with a tennis player and I'm having that tennis player do crunches and become more kyphotic, then when they go to swing back and hit the ball, then they've lost good motion in their thoracic spine because they've spent so much time shortening. A really good example, matter of fact, of a premier athlete is Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods was only training on basically strength training equipment. I know because he actually trained in a facility I was in for a while. And so it was leg press and squats and all these things. And if you think about the art of golf, first of all, is a load to explode movement, and it's moving in all three planes of motion. So he had first 2 surgeries to his knees, because every time, like if you were to grab your golf club, the minute you go into your backswing, your front leg basically is going to go into adduction, right? And so when you think about that, in our frontal plane, for our side-to-side movement, if I'm not training my hips in all three planes of motion and I'm not working on my connective tissue, then my golf swing is going to be really compromised, and or tennis or any sport for that matter. So with that being said, now Tiger is doing yoga and Pilates and working on functional training. So he's, back playing golf. So once again, we have to look at gym equipment, and so much of gym equipment is really about isolation because it's creating that result of hypertrophy, in aesthetic looks. Now, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but if we don't combine in fascial work with everything else that we do, we are going to have problems. So let's talk about especially, injuries and how we do get kind of gunked up. So as you can see in these three pictures here, is that individual that is sitting over a desk, 24/7. And with that being said, we don't have the ability for that load to explode. And again, when we look at doing crunches on the floor, for example, we're shortening up that fascial tissue. And this is why I put this picture up there. And then if you look at the other diagram of beautiful movement, whether it's a football player reaching for the football, or it's a dancer going into a jump, either way, that recoiling of fascia and the properties of fascia is so essential to understand, and why it transmits energy and how muscles transmit force. And when we look at especially injuries, when we're talking about the different types of injuries, from chronic being something that, we're dealing with, we feel that pain, and we kind of ignore it. We don't really do any myofascial work along with working with the other types of equipment that we're doing. Like, let's say we're doing like more of a boot camp type of class, and we have that nagging issue in, let's say, our knee, and we don't address it through adding in body work, then we're going to wind up with an acute injury. Acute injury is finally when you either sprain your ankle or something even more detrimental happens to that joint, and whether it's something along the lines of tearing your Achilles tendon to, in my case, osteoarthritis in my knees. I'm sharing this with you primarily because back in the day when we were doing high intensity fitness on a floor that didn't have any kind of cushion in it, we didn't do the foam rolling, we didn't do the flexibility. And for those of us that, are the active aging that have been in this industry for a long time, almost everyone I know that's my age that's still in this business has had some kind of joint replacement, whether it's surgery, knee, or whatever the case may be. So we've got so much accessibility to incredible information now about why fascia is so important to work with in each and every client or class that we do. So, and if you think about whenever we, pull out a foam roller, a lot of times our clients grumble and go, "Oh, I don't like it." Why don't you like it? Well, it hurts. Of course it hurts. It's no different than if we were to go in and get a deep tissue massage. I want you to think about this. You've had a deep tissue massage and the very next day you're really sore. Now, you didn't work out, so they went in and they manipulated your connective tissue. And if you're dehydrated, then there is no moisture to put back into the cells to lubricate, your joints and your fascia and your tendons and your ligaments. So with that being said, a very important, component to not having injuries is making sure that we are very, very hydrated, because if we sit all day and drink a lot of water, we're just going to have to excrete it out. But when we're exercising and drinking water, and especially foam rolling and drinking water, that all those nutrients go into our cells, and our body is primarily made out of water. So think about that for a moment, is how much hydration are you getting, and as far as good nutrition are you getting? All right, so let's talk about what fascia is. And basically, when we look at the components of our connective tissue, and I will give you this picture is directly from the Fuzz F-U-Z-Z, the fuzz, and it will be in your handout. In your handout is going to have my, my resources for you. And the fuzz, Dr. Gil Hedley, also like Thomas Myers, both are leading specialists in the world of fascia. And so is Jean-Claude Gimbardeau, who also is a specialist in fascia and the understanding of it. And with that being said, they are now really understanding why adding in manipulation to movement is so crucial for the health of our body, because it provides stability in motion, transmits energy, minimizes stress on our spine, and permits our function to be natural, to pull and push. And without fascia, we would not have the ability to have stability and or control our muscles. And collagen permits movement. And basically, when we look at the production of collagen, it starts to decrease as we age. So again, our nutritional program, rich in green vegetables, rich in plant-based nutrition, and of course, any kind of seafood that is high in omegas like salmon, all of which is going to help our connective tissue stay elastic because of collagen. And posture is dynamic, last but not least, but posture is dynamic. So our fascia molds to our habits. So if we're sitting all day long over that cell phone, like for example, we might say that our pectoralis is getting short and tight, but for all intents and purposes, so is all the surrounding fascia, and it molds. So then when you stand up, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so stiff. It's because we haven't moved it. So I'm going to show you lots of great exercises today with manipulation that you can use. Now, we're going to do a dissection in this program today. So if you have a queasy stomach, you might want to turn around. No, just kidding. So what I love to do is, because I've had the opportunity of working on cadavers and having the ability to really view what it looks like to see healthy versus unhealthy fascia, I think a grapefruit simulates very much to what healthy fascia should feel and look like. So before I begin, if you look at this picture, on your PowerPoint, you're going to see all the different sections. And it's very similar to that of the sections of connective tissue that surround each muscle. So when we talk about the epidermis, the top layer, the skin, and each layer underneath that is a layer of fascia. And some people have more dense fascia than others, depending on your DNA and how you're made up. Has a lot to do with how your fascia reacts. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and grab this grapefruit. And so if you're the type of person that you like to take a citrus fruit and maybe you rub it like I'm doing right now, or you rub it on the counter, why do you do it? Well, so that it's easier to peel. I want you to think almost like your skin is the same thing. So our skin becomes more pliable as our body temperature starts to heat up. Think about it. And as we start to move in different ranges of motion. So this is how I like to do this, is basically we make an incision into the grapefruit, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut back a little piece here so that you can see. All right, and then I'm going to just take off a little piece of skin here. So as I start to peel the skin back, as you can see, you've got this white, thick kind of, tissue here. So this would be like our first layer of fascia here. It's more dense, it's thicker, right? And this particular grapefruit has really nice, thick skin on it. Some grapefruits, some citrus, have much thinner skin to it. Now, what I'm going to do is take the knife and I'm going to just start to feather it back a little bit. And so as you can see here, underneath is our muscle. So again, even though I've cut this off and I'm feathering it back a bit, we have, imagine this is your muscle tissue here, and we work through the epidermis, through the first layer of fascia. But even when we cut directly into the grapefruit and cut it in half, same if I were to cut my leg, I'd bleed. Yes, there's going to be juice that comes out of the grapefruit, but for all intents and purposes, it's just a little bit wet. But here's that layer of fascia, as you can see, over our tissue. And between each muscle, if you will, you've got this layer upon layer of connective tissue. So if you were to cut into a grapefruit, and you'll never eat one again, you can really kind of see this as an analogy. If we were to cut, like this was your quadricep, right? If we were to cut directly and this was your femur here, does that make sense? Then you can see all this muscle tissue around. Now, like in my case with a knee replacement, I still have very thick tissue around where my scar is. And so when you've got this really thick fascia and the muscle trying to heal itself, basically fascia has to lay upon itself. So if you were to, for example, take your arms right now and cross them over, go ahead and do this, and pull, give it a tug, and nothing is moving, that is what we would consider like scar tissue. But if it slides and moves like this, then you've got the collagen proteins doing what they're meant to do. Is it is supposed to be, it's supposed to be fluid. It's supposed to allow your muscles to do their job. However, how we get stuck, lack of movement, poor diet, poor habits, and all these things add up to this thing called dysfunction. So we've got to add in movement. That's the most crucial thing that we want to walk away with today. So they are now doing a lot of research on the fact that there are so many proprioceptors in our connective tissue. And again, this is, as you can see, where they're lifting up the fascia off of the muscle, again, out of the fuzz. They are now discovering there's so many proprioceptors in our fascia and how everything is affected by our breath. Everything affects our parasympathetic nervous system. And when we're in a constant state of fight or flight, and especially too when times are very uncertain for people and they're worried about things, think about how you feel. When you are worried and you are stressed, your body aches. And these proprioceptors are very, very intuitive. So this is why, again, not only when we look at functional flexibility and fascial fitness isn't just about getting on a foam roller and rolling. It's also about how we affect our proprioceptors. So when we look at, especially the mesoneer and the Pacinian corpuscle, these individual proprioceptors are very, very affected by touch. So when you have a massage, for example, you after your massage, you feel very relaxed. You don't jump off that massage table and go, oh yeah, I think I'm going to go for a run. If anything, I don't know about you, but when I get off a massage table after especially deep tissue, I'm dizzy. It takes me a while to sit up because I'm very disoriented. So I want you to think about all those proprioceptors are getting stimulated in a way that they're not getting stimulated by, let's say, doing a boot camp class. Does that make sense? Now, when we look at our other proprioceptors, we also have the Ruffini and the Golgi. Now, the Golgi is more of our fight or flight proprioceptor. That's the one, we have a lot of those proprioceptors in our hip flexors. So, for example, when you're startled, you immediately do this. It's almost like you take this ready stance, right? And there's a lot of those proprioceptors, and their goal is truly to protect our body. So we've heard of the stretch reflex. In other words, if we go too far, then all of a sudden you feel something contract. All right, that proprioceptor is going, danger, danger, you're going too far, back off. But yet, sometimes we'll hear trainers go, come on, stretch further, you can do it, go as hard as you can. And at the end of the day, we are all built so differently, and our proprioceptors are so individual that we have to look at that as trainers. So once again, the mesoneer, the Pacinian, and Ruffini, these proprioceptors are very, very influenced by touch. They are also switched on by movement. So again, if you kind of, like all of a sudden you get off balance, it's not like you thought to yourself, oh my gosh, I better right myself, otherwise I'm gonna fall down. It's subconscious. So once again, the more we bring in working with our Golgi and not always having it in this constant state of overdrive and overstimulation, the better. And I hope that makes sense to you. So we want to look at, in our fascia, we need to manipulate it. We definitely need to hydrate it and give it the best nutrients that we can, but we also have to look at what our clients can do. Now, we've sort of dove into a little bit of, the fact that, our fascia is made out of collagen, proteins, and all these different chemical properties, if you will, that give us the ability to have this elasticity in our body, right? And again, if you're to look at different cultures, and if you were to go to Asia, and you'll see them squatting, and they can squat and sit down like a frog all day long, and they don't have knee problems like we do. So once again, if you started as a very young person and you had a habitual movement, then for all intents and purposes, then that movement can carry us on for the rest of our lives. But again, we come up with some really crazy exercise routines that our body doesn't adapt to depending on the type of body that you have, all right? So the next slide is really about the benefits of massage and movement. Now, most of my clients, and even myself, a massage, we treat it as a luxury. A, it's expensive. B, it's making the time to go do it. And with that being said, it's like we don't take the time to do it. Now, in different countries, I know I lived in Europe, and my insurance actually paid for body work. And so I got a massage once a week. But here, it's a different story. So look at our professional athletes, like our football players, our baseball players. I've trained professional athletes, and they would come see me, and right after they would see me, then they'd be going off to have their body work done. So when we look at the importance of them doing that, because they make the amount of money that they can to do body work and have it done, they would not be able to play their sport and be as successful as they are unless they had body work done. Now, those of us that don't do it, we've got to be creative in our way, and not only make it enjoyable for ourselves, but we have to make it enjoyable for our clients. We've got them to drink the Kool-Aid a little bit, and say, if you do this on a regular basis, you're going to feel better, you're going to have more energy, and we have to play into that. We know the science behind why doing fascial manipulation is so important, if that makes sense. But our clients need to know that it's going to make them feel better. So, and I know for me, I was actually doing, I was foam rolling on a not a really heavy duty foam roller, but a softer one about 4 days after my knee replacement. And between doing myofascial work on my foam roller and elevating to get the swelling down and to help my lymphatic system start to drain all that excess fluid, I know I went into my doctor like about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and he said, "Oh my God, you have no swelling. What are you doing?" So it can be done. It really can be done. So I hope you'll enjoy this section of our program today. So again, when we say it improves flexibility, increases our quality of movement, it will increase strength, and it will increase mobility, stability, and the other thing that's so incredible about it is balance. Now, in our program today, the equipment that we are going to need for our program is even if you just have a tennis ball works great. Now, I work with Rolga, so this just happens to be my roller of choice. As you can see, compared to a flat roller, it has contours to it and ridges. So the fascia is going to float right in between the contours for certain movements that we're going to do, especially the IT band. The IT band is a very, very sensitive area in our body. So is our lumbothoracic fascia. It's very dense. We're the only living creature that has an IT band, and our lumbothoracic fascia is designed to be dense primarily because it keeps us upright. And our IT band plays a huge role in the alignment of our knees and the stability of our hips. So getting on the IT band and really rubbing the heck out of it is not enjoyable for myself and or my clients. So I choose to use this roller where the IT band floats right in the middle, which is very cool. And then the other piece of equipment that we'll use today too is a small ball or bender ball, which works out really well for some of the exercises to really work on our hip flexors. And I will be giving you one later today that will be kind of life-changing for you. Last but not least, what I do like to use too, and even with my male clients, my big dudes, again, when you have body work done, almost 9 times out of 10, they'll say, what kind of scent would you like to use? I like lavender. This is one of my favorite scents that I like to use. And what I have my clients do is I have them rub it in the palm of their hands or on their wrists and breathe it in. And what I love about this is, guys, is that just by even taking inhales and exhales of having a lavender scent or some kind of scent that they enjoy, what does it help them do better? Breathe. And I took a great lecture just a couple days ago with Dr. Evan Ozar, and I'm sure some of you know of him. And he kept referring back to the importance of our breath. And our breathing also helps to change our parasympathetic nervous system. Everything that we do can't always be in overdrive. So when we use our essential oils, when we do our myofascial work, all together with movement, the magic happens. So if you've got some good essential oil, gosh, you can get it anywhere, and there's lots of different brands out there that are fantastic. So before we actually get into our myofascial work, this is just a diagram that shows you different areas that you can, place a tennis ball. You can actually use your hands and place your hand on top of a tennis ball and just do some manipulation. You can lie on it by actually activating and adding more compression to a movement, which, is probably what I would say more intense with a tennis ball. And I think a tennis ball is just a great piece of equipment that you can use. Number one, they're not expensive. Number two, they're softer. Is to where a golf ball or something is too hard. I find a racquetball is actually a little bit too soft. So with that being said, I think your tennis ball is somewhere in a happy medium. So what we want to talk about now is here's our Rolga. Here are all the different things that we can do with our Rolga. And you'll be getting this PowerPoint presentation. We'll be sending it to you as well. So you'll get these pictures and you'll be able to see, that I will be doing all these different movements with our program. All right. So you'll see these as we go along. All right. What we want to talk about now is we want to talk about the ranges of motion and how we move. And then I'm going to go into the planes of motion. All right. So our ranges of motion, as you can see in this PowerPoint picture here, and then coming back to me, you're going to see that when we do a hinge in the sagittal plane. So the reason I put this up is because my range of motion might be here. You might have a client that can go into a much deeper range of motion into a hinge position to lengthen the fascia in the hamstrings and glutes. Now, I see people squat like this all the time where their knees are over their toes, but I ask you, creating a functional movement for functional movement for this subconscious result. So if I'm training my clients to do a really good squat here in a hinge position, it translates to sitting in a chair. It translates into sitting on the toilet, which we have to do every day. And when we look at some of the modalities of how people are training out there, like in some of these crazy classes where they're put in a tuck position and they're put up on their toes, I mean, my head is just screaming, going, oh my God, why are we putting people in these positions when they're not authentically the way that our body is meant to move? So once again, when we look at ranges of motion is going to really be different for every individual client. So when we are working on flexibility, depending on how lubricated or how functional their fascia is, everyone's squat or everyone's movement is going to look different. So I really encourage we as trainers always demonstrate different ranges if we can, so that our clients are able to follow us and do it biomechanically correct. Let's talk about our planes of motion here. So in this slide, you're going to see sagittal, frontal, and transverse plane. And when we look at the sagittal plane, let's start with our sagittal plane. So our sagittal plane, and I'm going to use a really simple example. You're going to laugh, but I came up with this in the middle of the night. Don't ask me how, but it happened. We've all seen The Wizard of Oz, right? And when you think of the Tin Woodsman moved like this, right? The Tin Woodsman lived in the sagittal plane. Now, what does the sagittal plane have to do with functional flexibility and fascia fitness? Everything. I'm going to come back to the physical sciences being gravity. It's influenced by gravity. So I need you to stand up. And I know we know our planes of motion, but maybe you've never heard it explained this way. As you raise your arms to the ceiling, all right, and if you were to lean back, all right, you're going to notice that the front of your body lengthened. The rectus abdominis, from your pubic bone to your sternum, as you lean back, lengthened against gravity. Now, what do we normally do to the rectus? We normally do crunches and shorten it. And I have to keep asking ourselves, why are we doing crunches when we know your abs are made in the kitchen, your core is made by training functionally. Now, if you were to bend over and touch your toes, then you would notice right away that your hamstrings lengthened. You would have felt that right away. There's no negotiating that. So in our sagittal plane, it's influenced by gravity, right? So every time I move posterior in my body, I lengthen the anterior. And every time I move anterior, I lengthen the posterior against gravity. So our sagittal plane has a massive influence on our lengthening of those anterior and posterior muscles, and I hope that makes sense. All right, so the next plane of motion that we want to talk about is going to be our frontal plane. All right, so our frontal plane is right to left. Now, which character was here in The Wizard of Oz? It was the Scarecrow. So we've got abduction and we've got adduction in our frontal plane. But what does that have to do with functional flexibility? Well, everyone laterally flex over to your left side. I want you standing up for this. Now, as you flex to your left side, you're going to feel the right side of your body lengthen. Now, if you were to take your right arm and reach it up, do you feel it more? Take a grab of your wrist and give it a good strong pull. And now all of a sudden you feel that whole entire side body lengthen, and you just said hello to that lateral chain of fascia. How cool is that? So the closer our feet are is ADD adduction. The farther away our feet are is ABB abduction. And bringing our feet in closer and doing lateral flexion feels a lot different than being in abduction and lateral flexion, because now I have just freed up my hips to move from side to side. So where we position you in a lot of these exercises that we're going to do has a great influence on how we stimulate our fascia. Last but not least is my cowardly lion. If you remember when they were standing in front of Oz and Oz came out and went "Arr," and the lion scared himself, and he scared himself because he kept rotating and hitting himself with his tail. So there you go, Wizard of Oz, the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Woodsman, and the Scarecrow. And what about Dorothy and Toto? I don't know where they're going to fit in here, but anyway. So I want you to go ahead and rotate to your right and take your left arm across your body, and you're going to notice right away, for all intents and purposes, that your right arch supinated, but yet your left foot pronated. You all felt that. And then your left scapula protracted, but yet your right scapula retracted. So when we look at this plane of motion, if I'm just doing rotation, is not affected by gravity, So when we look at these planes and when we combine them in with myofascial work, this is when the magic happens, when I put this class to you together here in a moment. So let's go ahead and look at that posterior chain. All right. So this is what we're going to do is you can see I've got our lengthening of the calves, sagittal frontal transverse. I've got lengthening of our hamstrings, lengthening calves, thoracic spine, and cervical spine, all of which, when we look at that posterior chain, really needs some flexibility work. But where we're going to begin is just to give you an idea of this plane of motion is, let's go ahead, and I like to get to know a little bit of, even though I can't see you, I want you to go ahead and stand on up. And let's just find out what's going on in your posterior chain. So what you're going to do is go ahead and stand with all 10 toes facing forward, all right? And don't even think about this, but take a step back with your right foot. And then I want you to go ahead and look back at your right foot and notice whether or not did you externally rotate your right foot. Just take a note of that and then go ahead and step together, and then do the same thing on the left side and notice whether you rotated out or not, and step together. So I, as your trainer, if I see, even virtually, I do this with my clients, and they step back and I see that they rotate their foot out a lot, I know in that posterior chain, I need to work on calves, hamstrings, glutes, and working on lengthening. So do me a favor, I want you to step back and rotate out, just as we're doing here. Now bend your front knee and see if you feel your calf lengthen. Bend that left knee. Now go ahead and rotate with all 10 toes facing forward. Now reach and see whether or not you feel that calf lengthen. The minute you externally rotate in the transverse plane, you're not going to feel anything happen. But the minute you've got all 10 toes facing forward, you're going to feel magic happen, and you'll feel that calf lengthen. And then go ahead and step on back. Why is this so important? When our calves are lengthened, when our calves are pliable and they have a good spring to them, if you will, especially that fascia, then we're going to have stronger glutes. Why? Because we're going to squat more efficiently. So let's go ahead and stay here for a moment. Take that step back. So all 10 toes are facing forward. So again, as you bend your front knee, you feel that calf lengthen. Now, if you were to reach, so I'll give you a side view here. So it's, again, there's your hinge, so you're not flexing the spine. So as you reach below the knee, you're going to feel your hamstring and glute lengthen, right? So if I'm here, I'm going to feel more calf and I'm going to feel some hamstring on this side. But the minute I lean forward, again, I'm going to feel this guy really, really start to lengthen. And I hope you guys can really feel that. Now, if I were to add, so as you can see, lengthen our thoracic spine and sagittal frontal and transverse, and our cervical. So even if I were here, all right, I'm pre-positioned. We're here in what plane of motion, guys? Sagittal. So if I were to abduct my arms to my side, and then I start to add rotation to my left and reach, I'm going to feel that thoracic spine lengthen and rotate, and then come back to center. We're gonna be doing this in our workout. So I want you to do that again. So you're here, and now start to reach slightly below your knee, and I want you to look up at your left hand. Now you've got this amazing thoracic rotation, but if you were to look down at your hand, you have cervical rotation to the right, and then come on back up. All of those movements, just done slowly for a moment, and don't worry, we'll do the other side, you will notice a big lengthening sensation happen. We'll do it in our workout. So our next plane, let's go ahead and step back with the other foot. Our next plane is going to be our sagittal again, but let's talk anterior now. So as you reach forward, where are you supposed to feel it again, guys? Calf. As you reach below the knee, you're going to feel hamstrings and glutes because I'm moving anterior, right? Now, here comes the caveat. As I reach my arms to the ceiling and I slightly lean back and bend that front knee, I'm going to feel all the way from my iliopsoas all the way up into my armpit, and I'm going to feel an amazing stretch. Now, if I were to bring my arms down, I still feel my hip flexors, not as much. But the minute I raise my arms up, I feel that whole anterior fascial line lengthen. How cool is that? Now, if I wanted to increase that, what if I said, let's move a little bit into our frontal plane, grab our wrists like we did a moment ago, and now add rotation into the transverse plane, and now you have got the most amazing stretch in your hip flexor, which normally gets short and tight from doing what all day long, guys? Sitting. So again, when we've got that movement here, when we add all of those movements in, you can start the feel of the tug on your fascia and on your muscles. Pretty cool. All right, our lateral side of our body, this one is definitely, one to really be addressed. So let's go ahead and start with a real simple one. Abduct in the frontal plane. So just take your right foot out to the side, abduct the arms to the side, okay? And then I want you to cross behind. So the minute you cross behind, we created internal rotation of the left hip, external rotation of the right hip. Does that make sense? And then come back to center. So if I were just doing this cross back and coming back to center, who might that be good for? Remember I talked about Tiger Woods that only worked in this plane of motion? Because now I'm rotating my pelvis around my femur rather than my femur around my pelvis. So if I were to step back here, all right, and now as I start to slightly reach forward, I'm out of my knee, believe me, my knees let me know if something doesn't feel good. And now if I start to hinge forward in our sagittal plane, I get more load here, a lot more load in this IT band. If I were to reach to the knee and if I created a counter rotation and now looked up and now look towards you, you're winding up your fascia like crazy, and come on back. So again, that lateral hip complex is very hard to get to. And I know in a lot of, like quote unquote bar exercises, it's up and pulse and squeeze and tuck and tighten. And then all of a sudden, I've got clients that have all kinds of issues, sciatica and everywhere else is the chicken or the egg. So once again, when we look at a joint issue like the knee, in my case, it's because I had a dysfunctional calf and a dysfunctional hip, being a very tight hip flexor from all the activities I was doing years ago and never addressed it. It cost me a knee replacement. So with that being said, these are planes of motion, and the only way that you really and truly, can capture and start to feel what's going on in these planes of motion, guys, is to actually get up and do it and just play with it. I mean, do some stretches, do some movements and go, okay, I feel the difference. So what we're gonna do now is let's go ahead and we are going to begin with our tennis ball, all right? And go ahead and grab your tennis ball. And I'm gonna take you through a really kind of a cool little workout here that combines our foam roller, and it combines movement. So what you're gonna do in this is, if you have a regular foam roller right now, that'll work great. If not, Rolga, and it's Rusty, R-U-S-T-Y, at rolga.com, and that'll be in your handout as well. And you can really experience how great a Rolga is. So we're going to begin with our tennis ball. This is how I start all my students. Is I start you with all 10 toes facing forward, all right? And then I just have my students do some deep breathing. So when you breathe, it's a full deep breath in, and again, that essential oil is really helpful right now. Full deep breath in. So you want to pause for a minute as you inhale, and then as you exhale, let it all out. Whether you wanted to call it a Pilates breath or whatever the case may be, deep breathing techniques allow better flexibility. So let's just take a nice deep breath in, inhale, exhale, let it all out. Let out all the stress. One more time, deep breath in, inhale, pause and exhale. And I always cue whatever tension you are holding in your body, let go of it now. Place the ball down on the floor. Reach your arms up to the ceiling and take a deep breath in here. And as you exhale, just go ahead and flex forward. So what you're going to do is notice, and then go ahead and roll on up, which hamstring is actually tighter. Is it your right or is it your left? And with that being said, mine is my left, but it's going to be your right. So we're going to start with manipulation with the feet. So you want to place the tennis ball directly under your metatarsals. And we're going to open those toes up. Now, the only people that, I have questions is any kind of neuroma, plantar fasciitis, and there's, a lot of different diseases that you want to maybe just cue them not to put a lot of pressure into their feet because they can be very sensitive. So like neuromas. So open those toes and close those toes. So you want to work through each section of the foot. And what's really interesting too is in reflexology, in the meridians of the body, they always, they do different acupressure points on the feet. So curl your toes, open your toes, curl your toes, open your toes, and just start to work through each metatarsal here, open and close. Now from here, we're going to go into what I call flossing. So you're going to just rub from your heel to your toes. And there's a lot of different very specific modalities of how to do the feet. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to get my clients to adapt a way to do it. If I told them, listen, and if you can do this for 10 minutes a day, working on different parts of your body, you're going to feel better, they'll do it. But if I said, no, every day you need to give yourself an hour to foam roll, they're not going to do it. So from here, go ahead and gently press down. So create some compression under the arch and then release, compress, release. One more time, compress, then release, and then just go ahead and rub again. So what I like to do is I like to think of a CPR. I like to do at least 5 compressions, and then I like to go ahead and floss. And the whole time, deep breathe, inhale and exhale. Breathe in your essential oil, and it makes it so much more pleasurable. Go ahead and step on off. Take a deep breath up, inhale. Exhale, go to that forward fold. And as you do, right away, you're going to notice the difference between the right and left side. So what we want to do now is just notice how proprioceptively, how has this changed your proprioceptors? Balance on the side that you did, and then balance on the side that you didn't do, and you're going to notice that you feel heavier on the side you didn't do. Do a squat. Gee, which ankle bends easier? The one that you just did. So when we talk about how wonderful it is to manipulate our fascia and work on our connective tissue, just even our feet, you felt the difference, and this gets our clients to go, yeah, I'm going to do this. So again, you're going to go right under your metatarsals, curl your little toes around, open your toes, curl your toes and open those toes, and start to work through each and every joint, just like so. And curl and open, curl and open. And then from here, what you want to do, remember, is you go right into the arch and you start to floss from the heel. And we can get our students to do this sitting in a chair. You can get them to do it when they're watching TV, and now that, our world has dramatically changed, Self-care is going to be something that people need more than ever, not only to physically feel better, but to emotionally feel better. And that's part of our behavioral sciences. Now go ahead and compress and release. People are happier when they are healthy. When they don't feel well, that is when the behavioral sciences of depression and lack of movement start to kick in and now rub vigorously. You know, we've got a lot of clients that are in cities that are stuck in apartments. This is going to help them feel better. And again, that essential oil, I can't recommend it enough. All right, step on off, deep breath up and a deep breath down. And as you bend over to touch your toes, immediately you're going to feel a difference in the flexibility in your sagittal plane, and then go ahead and roll on up. Now from here, what I like to do is start with the feet, and then I go right into movement. Take a step back with your right foot. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to work right into lengthening that posterior chain. So I want you to bend and extend your left knee. We're going to do about 5 of these to just work into that calf, and you can add this into any warm-up that you want to do. All right, last one, let's hold it here. Okay, now we reach down, and so we're picking up a box. Feel that glute and hamstring. Reach up, place it in a shelf. Pick up that Amazon box and put it in a shelf, because I know we all have them now. 2 more times. Reach down, pick up that box, and lift. And I want you to hold it here. Now let's go frontal plane. And I want you to lean over to the side, back to center, and let your hips move. So press into your hip, back to your center, one more time. Lean to the side, back to the center, and all the way up. Now, here comes that other plane of motion, that rotation. You're gonna rotate towards your knee. Reach down as though you're gonna saw off your calf here. Reach the arm up, and now laterally flex, but keep looking ahead. Let's do that again. Rotate. Reach down, say hello to the IT band, glute and hamstring. Reach the ceiling, feel that hip lengthen, and now rotate. But now I want you to look in the same direction as you're rotating and feel this stretch. And now go a little bit farther for 3, 2, 1, back to center. Go into a squat. Which ankle bends easier? That was only about 60 seconds. Let's do the other side. So again, we start in that sagittal plane. We start to bend that front knee, then we come back. So we bend and we come back. So we start to work into that calf. Let's do about 3 more here and 2. Let's hold it right there now. Reach down below that knee, pick something up and take it all the way up. Let's do that again. Reach down, pick up your box and lift up. Now from here, hold it and laterally flex to the side. Now, this is a workshop, so give it a shot and grab your wrist and pull and notice the influence it's having on your hip right now. Bring it back to center, flex to the other side. Grab your wrist because you really want to focus on your left lateral side. Give it a pull, good and hard. Reach, lengthen, and feel this hip stretch. Arms open to the side. You spiral, you reach down like you're sawing off your calf, come to the ceiling, and rotate, but look towards me, back to center. Reach down, saw, lift, rotate, away, and back to center. Now, notice how you're feeling in your hips. This is where now we're gonna need our Rolga. So, let's take our Rolga, and we're gonna start at the back of our mat. And from here, I'm just adjusting this mic out of the way so I don't land on it. All right, so we're gonna take our Rolga all the way up. Deep breath up, inhale. Exhale, we're gonna go to that forward fold. And again, feel how different you feel in your hamstrings just from doing that. Take your roller out in front of you. Now from here, what we're gonna do, guys, is we're gonna come and place our thighs in between each contour. Or if you're on a flat roller, just on that flat roller. We're gonna come down to our forearms here. Now, from here, what you wanna do is we're gonna be on these forearms. I want you to think about really engaging your core by that breath. And again, this is where that oil comes in really handy, is now you wanna float the feet and start to do very small rocking motion. Think about how many people get on a foam roller and they're like, oh yeah, woo, this hurts like I'll get back. Well, so you wanna talk them through deep breathing here. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Exhale, inhale. Find a spot that is sensitive. Stay on it. Just like a massage therapist does. You stay on it proprioceptively. There's something going on with you individually that there's something triggering you biting your lip. Let's put it that way. Now, after you've made a few passes, and everything I do is very, very slow. After you've made a few passes and you're never landing on the joint, you want to toe in and then toe out. So you're passing back and forth, and you're gonna start to feel, as you toe in and toe out, we're gonna start feeling different areas of your quadriceps, which is really important. So toe in and toe out. Let's do one more, toe in and toe out. Now from here, let's go ahead and we're gonna flex our knees. This is kind of painful. And then I want you to go ahead and, again, toe in and toe out. So it's just a little toe in and a little toe out, and if it's too much, then you don't do it. All right? And then we're gonna stay there for just a moment and open and close and hit different parts of our quads by opening and closing those feet. So inhale and exhale, open and close for 3 and 2 and 1 and release. All right, how are your thighs doing? Come on up. Now, from here, we're gonna talk to you about how we do one at a time. So what you wanna do is place that right thigh, and I'll show you, it's gonna be right there. The left one goes out to the side. Now, perhaps this one is new to you. Most people have done this one, but I'm gonna show you a couple different ways to get out to the lateral part of the leg. Now, you start to walk your elbows toward your bent knee. In your case, it should be your left knee, because your knee is down on the mat. Now, you're gonna feel a stretch in that lateral part of your body here. Now, from here, what you can do is slowly come down and reach your right hand out. So you've got right leg is on your roller, and this is going to create that tension in that fascia. This is a very different way to do this. And then again, you can just have your client or you yourself can just feel that compression, or you can come up, keep this arm in front of the other one, add a little lateral flexion, and now roll up and down. And there's a big difference of the fascia that you're going to get rather than just rolling in the sagittal plane. Now from here, what you're going to do is place the left hand down and then just lift the knee up, all right? And now you're going to float that IT band right in the center contour. Now, if you're on a flat roller right now, you're going to be screaming. So you're just in that center contour where that fascia is floating right in the center. So it feels so much better. And then go ahead and bring it all the way up. Now, what's great about this is usually what I have my clients do after something like that is almost have them touch their thigh and then touch the other thigh, and they're gonna feel a big difference. So to give you an idea again, your foam roller, you know, whether it's a flat one or this contoured type of foam roller, is you're right in the center. And what I was trying to get you to do is you're crawling towards that bent knee. So you see how we're at an angle here? Is to where if I was straight up and down, I would be right here. Does that make sense to you guys? So being here on this angle gives you that transition to ease your client into working then on the IT band. It just helps. But if you're on a flat roller, then I would recommend kind of staying off that IT band, all right? Now, so that's our quads. Now let's talk about if you don't have accessibility to a foam roller, what else can we do then with our tennis ball? So let's go ahead and have a seat. Place our tennis ball underneath our calf. Take the other leg and cross it over. Take your hands behind you and lean forward and just go ahead and flex and point and flex and point. So you feel that compression right underneath the gastroc. Now, what we're doing by pulling the foot back is we're adding all the way from the calcaneus all the way up to the hip. We're increasing tension on the fascia. The minute you let your foot go, you can actually feel it. You can feel it's almost like this pulling effect, right? Now, from here as you go into a hinge forward again, you're going to feel even more effect on that posterior chain. Take a deep breath in, deep breath out, and then go ahead and come on back. And you'll feel that. Now, another one that is good too is, so you're not right on the IT band, but you're right below it or right above it. So that tennis ball's to the outside. I just want to give you things that you can do if you don't have a foam roller. And again, all of these things can be done prior to a workout. And then just go ahead and gently compress. So by hinging forward again and adding a little compression and then release, it's like that gentle trigger point that a massage therapist is going to do on the outer thigh. And then you just, because we can't roll on the tennis ball, you just reposition the tennis ball to a different area. Where I find I'm more sensitive is in the center of my thigh. So we just have have your students hold it and just feel that right there. Deep breath in, deep breath out with a little hinge forward, and then go ahead and release. So that one gets a little bit of the IT band, and then and these are in your notes. And then last but not least for our posterior chain is take your tennis ball on the outside of the glute. Bring the hands to the side. This is the one that everyone screams over. And then I want you to let your knees fall to the side and then bring it back to center. Let your knees fall to the side and then back to center. Now let's hold our knees to the side, hold it, and now lean back about 5 inches, and you might feel some discomfort. Now from here, what you're gonna do is go ahead and do some circles. Don't worry, we will do the other side. So circle around just a few times, and then go ahead and release. Let's do the other side. So under your calf, and then go ahead and cross over. And then what you want to do again is lean into it, flex and point. So remember, just these simple tips of flexing, pointing, leaning forward, you're going to get right into that gastrocnemius, right? And then what did we do afterwards? We hit different areas above or below the IT band with just gentle compression, just really easy gentle compression, and then you move the tennis ball appropriately where you need it. Then last but not least is underneath your glute. So one glute is always going to be more sensitive, let your knees fall and come back, than the other. Usually it's the right, because that's the side we drive with. And then go ahead and you make small circles working into the glute. And then let's go the other way for 3, 2, 1, and then release. So you'd spend some more time, obviously, than that. So as promised, with a ball or a pillow, we want to lengthen that anterior chain in that sagittal plane. So this one for me is a game changer. Because if we're doing crunches all the time, we're shortening that anterior chain. So if you remember in our slide that shows the rectus abdominis, we shorten it all the time. So by placing the ball behind the low back, we decrease how much hip flexors we use. That means we're not overreacting our Golgis. We lean back into a pillow or a ball, and then by gazing up to the ceiling, only with your eyes, and then bring your arms with you and sit back into this, you're gonna feel the front of your body shake against gravity, and then slowly bring it all the way back in. So we can't think of flexibility training as only doing, like yoga. No, gosh, this is core training as well as lengthening our fascia. So lean back into it, reach the arms up, lean back and hold. You have to have something behind your back, otherwise this doesn't work. And now let's add in a different plane of motion, add rotation, hold it, and notice how your obliques switch on. By the way, we are loading to explode, just like that cat. You're not gonna get this against a flat surface. Rotate back to your center, and rotate back to your center and return. By the way, this really keeps your, your fascia so ageless and happy. Now, take your roller. So what I like to do is movement and manipulation. So our roller this time is under our hamstrings. You want to lift up nice and tall. Now, flat rollers, this is not as effective. The Rolga, it's a different ball game. So what I love here is toe in and toe out, and this is just the most amazing manipulation on the hamstrings. I absolutely love it. So again, you're toeing in and toeing out. This is one of the ones I did for my knee rehab, a lot of them. And then of course, doing knee extensions. Good, so you're gonna do 2 more here, and then go ahead and come on in. Doesn't that feel good? Now, what's so great about the Rolga as well is I love this because for calf work, this to me it just feels so good because you've got your calf floating right in the contour, or you can actually place the calf right on the ridge and get right in between the twins, since the calves are a twin muscle. So this is another way to use our roller. Now, moving on, from here what we'd want to do is, let's go ahead, and we all know this one, is to sit back into our roller in our sagittal plane, all right? And from here, you hold your head, and what I like to do with my clients is let them extend that thoracic spine to open up that anterior chain and then slowly come back. Not to the point of any pain, but you want to slowly allow that thoracic spine to open, not to the point of any discomfort, but open up in the sagittal plane, and now go ahead and laterally flex in your frontal plane. And you're gonna feel that roller right, no matter whether it's this one or a flat roller, right underneath the scapula. So hold your head to relax it, and then just allow extension and lateral flexion of that body. Nice deep breath in and a deep breath out, keeping in mind you're constantly cueing those students to breathe, and then go ahead and bring it back to your center. Now, to intensify that, you could add a bridge to this and roll in the sagittal plane, but yet also laterally flex in the frontal plane as a option here. Okay, last but not least is our hip flexors. Now, what I'm gonna have you do is, while you're laying down, go ahead and lie down, and I want you to just notice if you feel kind of different from one side to the other, like maybe one side is heavier than the other. This is my go-to, all right? And I'm actually going to face you. This is the most amazing hip flexor lengthening exercise you're gonna maybe ever do. I'm gonna face you so you can see. Place the ball underneath your right hip, but let the left one be down on the mat. So your left foot is gonna be down on the mat. This is where I really encourage that they breathe in the oil. And then I want you to extend your right leg, but your left hip is on the ground, and then extend the other, both knees are gonna be straight. So in other words, I want your right hip elevated, left hip is down. So you're like this. Right arm only over the head. And I want you to stretch through your right side body. This is where you close your eyes, and I want you to take 3 deep breaths in. So inhale, fill the lungs. Exhale, let it all out. Inhale, fill your lungs. Exhale, let it out. Now flex your feet, point your feet, flex your feet, point your feet. And all the while, I want you to take really deep breaths in. Now, because of time, we're not going to do this for very long, unfortunately. But now what I want you to do is just give me one more big stretch with your right arm over your head, and then go ahead and take the ball away. And you're going to notice that your right hip is heavier than your left. So to end your day today is, let's do both. So again, you elevate your left, right is on the ground, left arm is overhead, and you cue your students, or I'm going to cue you, deep breath in, deep breath out, 3 deep breaths. And this is where your breathing really changes the parasympathetic nervous system and increases your flexibility and makes your fascia more pliable. Flex your feet, point your feet, flex your feet, point your feet, and then go ahead and take the ball away. And I should hear a universal sigh across the internet just from that. Now, from here, what I want you guys to do is go ahead and grab underneath your thigh, and let's go ahead and bring your knees around, come to a tabletop, and then walk yourselves in. So go ahead and walk yourselves all the way up. So this is kind of the magic of this class. Now, after I've done those movements, I'll take my students back and I'll say, take a step back with the right foot. And I will go through the sagittal protocol again. The calf, the glute, the hip in our sagittal plane, give it a big reach, give it rotation, and have them retest after class and see how that feels to them. To me, it's just incredible. So the whole purpose is to really understand that our fascia needs movement. And I'll leave you with this. It's a really great saying, motion is lotion. And when we add in foam rolling, and I know you all know how to foam roll, and I know you've got lots of different techniques that maybe you've taken elsewhere, but combine breath, essential oils, movements in our planes of motion, and myofascial work, and your clients are going to move so much better for you than you can even imagine. I'm so happy that you joined me today for this workshop, and as you can see on this slide, this is my new company, as I'm ageless now, and you can reach me at my email, leslee@bendertraining.com. And in your handouts are these exercises and how we did them. And I hope to see you in future courses coming up soon, and have a wonderful, healthy, and happy day.